Peter, I'm going to turn to you. iPad, really, really hot. Literally. I mean, literally. What's going on with this?
I don't know if it's really, really hot, literally. It is apparently, according to the blogosphere, warmer than the last iPad was.
Slightly.
They've done, there's tests, people have heat vision, and they've determined that the iPad 3, or what we're calling the new iPad, I guess, runs some degree incrementally warmer than the iPad 2. And there's sort of because that's what people like to talk about on the internet is Apple and iPads. And you see this with new products, by the way. Every time Apple comes out with a new product, the blogosphere sort of pores over it. Sometimes there are indeed some flaws, either with hardware, more often with software, or bugs that need to be worked out, and they jump all over that. Anyway, so today we got a response from Apple, sort of a non-response, saying the new iPad is awesome, has all these awesome attributes. It runs with, I think that the quote is something effective, it runs within our degree of heat specifications or something. So they're not denying that it's warmer.
Right.
They're not confirming that it's warmer.
But they're saying it's not cause for
They're saying
concern.
that's cool, just chill out.
It's cool. They're literally saying it's cool. Chill out.
Well,
yeah.
It's worth noting that one media report out there, I haven't been able to confirm myself, is that Consumer Reports is going to look into this and say something today after doing a battery of tests. So it's something that's gotten on the radar, at least of one of the largest consumer watchdog groups. There's also, it's worth noting that a lot of Apple gadgets have been kind of given trouble over being warm in the past. I personally remember when the original MacBooks came out in 2006, the black ones, that someone actually fried an egg on it because it was getting so hot. And so these types of things do happen. It's going to be curious to see whether or not this rises to the level of something that becomes a scandal like the AntennaGate did 2 years ago when the iPhone 4 came out and there were signal issues.
Right.
The anecdotal evidence shows that some people, and I've heard one person in fact had trouble where it got really hot even just reading email. But other people I've talked to say that it hasn't been a problem at all. So it'll be really curious to see what happens.
And something to think about here is that the point, everyone said, oh, the new iPad isn't that much different than the old iPad, and Apple said, no, it is different. It's got this crazy screen, and also the guts of it are different. There's different stuff inside.
Battery, it weighs a little bit more.
There are different mechanics under it. It's not the same machine, so it wouldn't be shocking if it operated differently. If Ian says there really is a problem, people physically can't use it, then the question for them will be, is this something we can fix with software, or do we have to go back to the drawing board? That would be a huge disaster if the latter was the case. I find it hard to believe they'd even admit to that.
And it's worth noting that in a lot of the reviews, there wasn't very much mention of any of this, and also that we're talking about a device. On the other end of this, we're talking about a device. The screen has 4 times as many pixels. Processors have to work really, really hard to be able to create those images, and it's very possible that that's what's pushing a lot of this. The batteries are larger. I mean, there's a lot of things that could be contributing to this heat thing, and it could be nothing as well. It's going to be really curious to see what happens.
Now, the website that published the results of this study is a Dutch website called tweakers.net. Do we know how legitimate this site is? And also, they seem to point to one area of the device, the hardware of the device, where they seem to indicate was the problem, the hot spot, so to speak. Not the problem, but where the heat was radiating from.
Right. So the tweakers.net, I mean, there are a lot of these websites out there that are actually, they live underneath the radar for most of us, but they're very much for these people who like to get the most out of their machines. They're the people who found a special type of chemical that you can dunk your computer in and rank it up, 15 times faster than it's supposed to, and it still runs. So it's those types of people. They are very much attuned to this heat type of stuff with computers, and it's no surprise that they were able to kind of turn their efforts on the iiPad.
And the iPad is a thing that you're more intimate with. You hold it.
On the bottom part of the iPad is where the problem is, and that basically where the processor is, where the work is being done, not where the battery is where a lot of the heat is, which you would expect. I mean, that's where it was getting hot on the iPhone a long time ago, and it's something that is kind of common, is that the processors do get warm when they're working hard.
I mean, the phone you hold to your head a lot, but the iPad, it's really supposed to be an intimate device, unlike the laptop where you sit it. You don't actually put it on your lap that often.
Laptop, well,
you might, but the iPad, you're almost always holding it right to you or very close to you. So if it is warmer, especially if you're clutching it with your sweaty little hands, you will notice that heat difference.
Well, and one thing also is that one thing that a lot of people noticed a couple of years ago when the iPad first came out, when they would leave it in the sun, is that it automatically turns off if it gets too hot. I'm trying to figure out actually what the exact heat is. I'm curious if Apple ever published anything, but there is definitely a certain heat at which point the device will just cease to function because it senses that it's too warm and it thinks that it's dangerous.
Well, as Peter said, this first test shows that it's hotter. The new iPad is hotter by incremental degrees than the iPad 2, so we'll have to wait and see if more testing is in fact done, if Consumer Reports looks into this, and see how the story develops. Ian, really appreciate you joining us today from San Francisco for this discussion.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Ian.